Where was the on the course?
Yeah.
Where was the?
Okay, so and actually that's exactly what we'll be doing in just a sec. So what we've been through is we've had a look at planning and building approval, where those two things sit, and then what sort of information we need for either of those. And there's going to be more that we'll learn about that process as we move through. We've got a fair idea of what planning and building approval consists of, and then we also have a fair idea now of where we can get all of our information from for that. Well, not all of that information. What we haven't covered yet are various different consultants. So we'll be looking at that in the weeks to come. But in terms of the online information, yeah, it's primarily SA Map Viewer and then Salus as well, plus additional Google searches, which we'll have a look at today. But I don't think that would be too much of a mystery for many of you. So with I'll get the procedure document happening, and then we'll also get task 2, desktop research, happening there. I'll open that. And we've also had a look at filing and covered filing, and I think everybody's fairly well across that for now. So with our project 1, fairly sure everybody knows where the project is, what our local council is, etc. I won't go through the specific zoning for our local council, so what I'm planning to do today is do this project but do it in another location. So just come up with a fictitious location and then we'll do this very same project but in another spot, see how it fits, just for doing that process of working through the development plan. Now, as we know, that the whole process about development plans is all in a state of flux at the moment, and it's changing significantly. For those of you that have been on the department, or the, what is it called? I can't think off the top of my head. The planning, the planning, state planning site. There's a heading in there to say that stage 2 and stage 3 have been pushed back now for implementation. Yeah, and also as presented with a petition on the weekend from other residents where I live about, saying this needs far better information, consultation, greater time for reflection. So I think possibly you guys have seen things like that floating around as well. So we've got a bit extra time for this process, and I think I certainly support that as well. There's really so little information about what we're actually going to be working within once it's implemented. So I'd like to see a lot more come through as well. So anyhow, what we've got, we're going to be doing this project, and I've picked an address of number 10 Marion Street in Unley. So a place I've got a little bit connection to, but place I think shouldn't matter if we use that as an in-class example. So what we've got is a single-storey house. So your client wishes to build design provided a single-storey house on the newly acquired site at number 174 Shepherds Hill Road, Bellevue Heights. They want to maximise views and passive design principles. So to understand that, we've got to look at our allotment, the configuration of our allotment, how that's working in terms of north, south, east and west, and how our land slopes and what sort of views we're going to have from that. Have people done that? Yeah, has anybody done that?
What's that? Sorry.
Have a look at the actual site from Google Earth or SA Map Viewer, and have a bit of a look at the topography and seen where you can get views from for that site. Some people have, yeah, some people, yeah. So I think that's a really good thing. Some things we want to think about. So we'll have a look at that site. Some things we want to think about is where are our views going to come from? Because it's always going. Well, in many cases, it's going to be an interplay between getting really nice views and amenity in the house and passive design principles. They don't always line up perfectly. I think a perfect case in point is if you're building a place on the Esplanade, what you want some massive windows facing west, looking at the ocean. Now, from passive design principles, that's probably the worst thing you can do. So what you want to do is you want to balance that somehow and have shading, etc., or glazing, or a combination of both that minimise solar penetration into the windows. And we may be facing something fairly similar here as well. So we've got land sloping away toward the west. We've got views out over Marion and to the sea, and we've got bushland out the back. So things that you may want to connect with. Other things I would be thinking about with the site is having a look at predominant wind direction and strong winds as well, because being a site which is on the cusp of the hills, you get a concentration of wind. So down on the flat here, you don't. If there's a southwesterly or so blowing in, you don't really feel it in an intense fashion in the lower areas, because we've got a lot of houses close to each other with trees, etc., and a lot of the wind goes over the top because you're not at that on the face of the hill. But on Shepherd's Hill Road, Bellevue Heights, you are on the face of that hill as the wind has gone across the metropolitan area and starts to intensify. Has anybody used wind maps, or sorry, wind roses? Well, I had a look at wind roses before. So it's not something specifically asked for in the project. And actually, have any of you been on a site called Willy Weather or used that? One person. Yeah, look, two people. Or,
no, I use something different. But
yeah, what do you use?
I just use the bomb.
The bomb. Bomb's really good. Another thing I have it on my phone is an app called Windy, so I can open that up, and it tells you what the wind is currently, and you use a slider, because a lot of what I was doing previously was very wind reliant. So if it's over 30 kilometres an hour, you can't sheet up a roof. That's what I've used it for.
I just found my website. This website. Because obviously they only have a recording of that in specific locations where they have a meter for it. Or,
exactly.
So they can't just pinpoint and go that address. Give us a.
Yeah, but what Willy Weather does though is they have they use all the bomb information, but then they interpret all of that information and will attribute wind roses for a location based on what they know from all this data that's coming through from the bomb. Yeah, maybe the bomb has it. I haven't really explored that site very well.
But at least sounds like these guys sort of make it a bit more easy for someone to interpret. It's not in the industry like they break it down and make it a bit more consumable.
Yeah, that's what I found. And so I'll just go with what I know.
So is this really only going to give us really a snapshot of now, or is there something on there that gives you like a yearly?
There are yearly projections. I always look at that for rainfall. I've never really looked at wind throughout the year for localities. I'm more looking at, okay, what's it going to be like tomorrow, the next few days?
Yeah.
In terms of wind, rain, they definitely have that for rain. So our postcode for Bellevue Heights, 50/50, I think. Yeah, there we go, Bellevue Heights. I don't mind doing that for this place because this is not actually something which is specifically required for your desktop research. But what we can do is we can select for wind. And so it tells us what the current wind is, but then, yeah, as Darcy's found down below there, we have our wind rows
5-year average.
set for that. So you can see the predominant wind directions, and then our darker colours show our intensity. So if we're looking at that, we go, okay, well, we get a lot of intense. Well, not a lot. We don't get a lot of anything really with this site. It's it's fairly reasonable, but we get our intense gusts from the southwest. Possibly want to protect our living areas and so on from those gusts, and consider that within our design. But looking at that, we think, okay, predominantly we don't get a lot of really strong winds, and we don't have any real pattern of we have to protect from this particular side. I'll go to another place. What is it? I'll just type it in. Another place I've had a bit to do with recently, designing a place for that. Obviously, down at Second Valley, down on the Kura Peninsula, it's a very different story. We have a real pattern coming there. We get a lot from the south and a lot from the north, and our southerlies are the ones that have that really intense, those really intense gusts. As you can imagine, down in the Fluria, that's what you're going to get. But it's a north-south direction. From that, you can go, okay, well, if we protect things on the north and south from our winds, then that's going to be important for our design, and it's going to be important for the livability. So that's not directly, I would say, it's not directly designing for passive design. Like passive design is more about using the sun and the sun's path, but it's about contributing to that livability of the site and looking at the local conditions and saying, how do we work within
Because
our
if you've got a
local
winter
conditions?
backyard, it is really unpleasant.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like having winter backyards, full stop.
Yeah, and if you're thinking, okay, passive solar design, we want to minimise our trees to the north there because we want to be getting all that solar penetration, and you do that, and then actually there's a lot of wind that comes from the north. So there's several factors you've got to consider. So your views, you've got to consider your wind, but then also think about the allotment, how that house can be placed on the allotment, and how you can maximise that solar penetration in winter and minimise that in the summertime. So
do you know what the percentages actually relate to on the wind rows? Like, is that out of all time, like 12% of the time it's from that direction, or?
I don't know. I never actually looked at that and thought about that, but I imagine so.
Yeah.
But it looked to be about that, wouldn't it? So how many?
Near Gale.
Yeah.
The top of it is near Gale.
Yeah.
But the percentages as that circle goes out and out and out.
Further.
Different percentage, I'm not sure about that.
Right.
I'm.
Hang on, look down below, they've got a scale. So you've got 11.26% southwest generally. Then if you go right down to the darker blue, you're looking at strong at 0.47%.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the only that sucks. And even then it doesn't suck that much.
So 11% of the time it's in that direction.
Yeah. So, so with our site analysis, we're going to have to consider a few things like that, and you're going to have to have an idea about that before you go meeting with your client. In terms of passive solar design, how many of you in the class know a bit about passive solar design, and has that come through from the subjects you've studied here, or is it personal curiosity? Your personal curiosity? So, nothing?
Probably a little bit learnt from your materials.
Yeah.
Need a refresher though.
Need a refresher?
Yeah.
Okay, rightio. So we'll squeeze in a refresher. Let's squeeze in a refresher on that today. Cool. Right. So we've got our. We're looking at so we've had get this go out of the way. So maximize views and passive design principles. So we'll go through that a little bit later, but we will know how to have a look at maximizing views. Well, actually, no, maybe we don't. Has everybody been onto Google Earth before? Grab the map with the cursor on your mouse and rotate it around to look at the topography.
Just did it before when you mentioned it,
Yeah. So let's maybe do that for the subject
How
side.
do you get onto Google Earth?
Google Maps.
Yeah.
And then when you're on there,
Yeah.
in the bottom right, there's like a little world option.
All right.
And you click that and it'll go to globe mode. And then if you hold shift on your keyboard and then click in the view area and move it around, you can
Right,
move around the world.
I'm going to have to get one of those instructions down here. Right. And I've got.
And then you have to be on satellite.
How do I get to satellite? I've got the satellite. Oh, satellite, yeah.
Bottom left. And then on the right, there should be a little globe at the very top
On,
of the options, bottom right.
on the bottom right.
And now you're in globe mode.
Yes.
So then,
Oh, globe, I see, yeah.
and then if you go shift and then click in the view area, you can
Shift.
move it around.
In the view area.
Want to probably look at the direction, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just go like that. I went shift and clicked in the view area, and all it did was show me up a tiny little image
Oh,
of
I see,
it.
no, but if you move your cursor closer.
Yeah.
So we dived into all this.
Okay.
Clicked on that. And then
Okay, yeah, so now you're out of it. Again, yes, you can. Yeah, and then shift,
shift,
and then click that.
click,
Just click where is the,
click where there's
oh,
no.
hold it and hold
So
it
can
down.
I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Click hold, and then, so click, and hold it, yeah, there.
Oh, I see.
And then you go to 3D.
Okay, got it.
It is just based on that.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah. Yeah.
And
So
Bob has things it's like.
Try to get the shift.
yes. Yes.
Hold it down, you know, click and hold it down.
Yeah, I clicked it.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think it's. I want to give the game away. Have a bit of a play. Have a bit of a think about it. One thing about this project is no two submissions are going to be alike. Well, if two submissions are exactly alike, well then I think we've got something else to explore. But you're given that option to have a look at the site and think about what would work best for your clients. And so far, yeah, they're definitely general themes. They're things that almost every person in the class does. But there are always going to be some slight differences, and you're allowed to have some slight differences. So just quick explanation for those at home that watch that. So go into Google Maps and then click on get our site up. Then click on the globe over here. Then you're in globe mode. Use
I
Control
mean, that's good.
and the left-hand cursor of your mouse, and you can rotate
It tells me that
the
there's a bit of drive down.
view to get an idea of the topography and what you're going to be dealing with. So that's our site there under the little. Oh, yep, that's our site there. Stop it. Yeah. Right, so it's our. Was that site there under the red pin? There we go. That's our site under the red pin there, and as you can see, there are views out over that gully to the sea, and then we've got a bit of bushland out the back of the property as well. Another thing about what you ask for this project is to determine north as well. So a really quick, easy way of determining north is when you open up Maps or Google Earth and you haven't modified it yet, north is directly up. So when you've opened it, when you've opened it like this, you can zoom in, and don't zoom in too far, because once you zoom in too far, then it can put it off kilter. But you can zoom in a little bit, and then take a snip of that image, and you can import that image into your drawing program to determine exactly where north is.
Even if you're in any angle, you can just press this and it
yes,
north up, so you can look at it.
So you double click on that.
If you move it around, and you put that
cheers.
just or just a little
on the compass
down there, put it back to north.
Okay, thank you. And that's how we can get an appreciation of where north is. So from what you can see when we go back to just the map view there, the property boundaries are not quite directly aligned with north, south, east, west. And so your dwelling is probably going to sit on a bit of an angle on the block to maximise your north facing, your windows that face north. And that might work fairly well with how your entry works, etc. So have a play about that, have a think about that. Then back to our brief. So beyond that, they would like to remove the front fence and extend the deck from the meals area to 3 by 3 metres. So let's have a quick look at our building so we understand exactly what that is. So we can't see our front fence unless we have a look at back on our Google Earth here. So this is the front fence they want to be removing. So that's the site as it exists at the moment. We've got this massive big front fence.
That's good.
What's that?
That's curveball.
It's a curveball. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's.
I mean, I've just been going through the planning and going through that. I'm not going to say any more than this because people have worked it out for themselves.
Yeah.
That fence is curveball.
Yeah. So there's going to be something interesting to deal with there for you, and you're going to have discussions with council about that. For sure. So they want to remove that front fence. And they want to extend this deck to the meals area of 3 by 3 metres. So currently off this meals area, there's a tiny little deck there, or a tiny little landing to the stairs. They want to make that actually a functional outdoor space. So 3 by 3 metres, so they can have a table, etc., and be out there. One thing I'm not going to do is I don't say that deck has to stay exactly where it is either. So they've got a deck off the meals area. They want to maintain a deck off the meals area, and they want that to be 9 square metres, 3 by 3. But if it works far better for you to stick it out the back here, you think that's a better thing to do? Sure. Yeah, do that. So these things are on the table, and you can have those discussions with your client. If it works here, well then that's fantastic. We're not modifying our design too much. That keeps things a bit easy for us. Yeah.
We're treating it's a new home.
Yes.
Is there like if you say we're removing the front fence, is that there but there's nothing else on the site? And it's a bit.
Yes, spot on. Yeah. So what it is, it's your typical brownfield site where there was something on the block beforehand. It's been demolished. There are remnants.
We imagine
of
it's
things.
been demolished.
Yes, we imagine it's been demolished. Now, look, in the real world, you probably wouldn't purchase that property and demolish the building that's there. I don't.
It's a good building.
What's that?
I've seen the plans before. It's a good building.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. But for the fictitious nature of this project, yes, you're getting that allotment. getting rid of all the stuff that's there, or actually all the stuff has gotten rid of except for that front fence. The front fence exists, but beyond that you're dealing with the vacant site, and then you're building a new house there.
How'd they get the excavators in there to destroy it with that big front fence?
Oh, they did it. They did it like with a 4-ton excavator. Took the cab off and did it with a little one. Yeah, but yeah. Oh, they got a road in the back from the reserve. Yeah. Yeah.
Four-wheel drives.
Yeah. There's certain bits you've got to suspend for these projects. So we're looking to build a really simple, tiny little weatherboard house on there. Obviously, yeah, it's probably not going to happen, but it's a simple thing to start off with in terms of the subject. So, put it on the Word document here. So, first of all, analysing and summarising client brief provided on Learn to establish client requirements. Now, you could look at that and go, oh, well, basically, I can just go into that procedure document, take a snippet of that because that's a summary already. Please don't do that. Please actually go in there and just write a bit about this is what the client wants to do.
Right, so actually, because that was my confusion, was I saw client brief and this is it, and it's like, what is this about? You know, I mean, they've not said very much, but you want us to go through all of that document and all of those things about it and just have a bit of a big picture.
Yeah. Get a picture of what they're wanting to do and summarise it. It's not about the destination, but about the journey on this. It's about you actually engaging with that client brief to make sure that you understand that client brief. That's what this step is about, right? It's already summarised there for you, but I want you to go in there, do that in your own words, and say this is what we're going to do. Next thing is Google search of address for possible floor plans and information available. I won't go through that in the class. I think that's pretty simple for everybody to do. And that's one thing you'll end up doing with just about every project you ever work on. Doing a quick Google search and say what has happened here before, what plans and things are available, what information is available online. So you'll find information about this probably because it's sold recently. And
it made about $300,000 from 2001 to 2019.
Yeah.
In 2001 it sold for 180.
Yeah.
And then 530 in 2019. So
rightio.
they're going to do money on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that information, grab some snips of the more pertinent stuff, and then put that in your report. Basically, I just need to see evidence that you've gone online, you've done a Google search for the address, and you've turned up information. It's about that activity.
It's just about what was on it before. I mean, it's not a huge deal about, you know, sort of background. It's just like, well, there used to be this house, this was the layout, this was the whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but you'll see from that there are trees on the site and
Oh, right.
yeah, and you get a sense of the topography and the access, a sense of the locality as well. That information. So Google Map search for existing structures, vegetation, site entries, slope of block, direction of north, and neighbouring structures. So much of that neighbouring structures you can get from Google Maps, Google Earth, etc. You can drop your little man on the street and have a look at the neighbouring structures as well. So that's once again about going in, having a look at all those aspects, taking some snips and popping them into a report. I don't think I need to go into any of that with anybody. It's all quite simple, is it?
When is like the slope, is that just a general like observation? It's not when
Yeah.
you're not trying to find the actual detail.
Good question. So I'm fine with both because you get your detailed information when you get the survey. So you can have a look on that Google map and you say, okay, there's a moderate slope to the block. And if you can find a way to express that.
Because I didn't have Google it, I didn't actually find that there.
Yeah.
But what I did was I just went into the location viewer and looked at the contours.
Yeah.
You know, just counted.
Yeah, and that was the next thing I was planning to mention on that is, yes, you can have a look at SA Map Viewer. So we'll have a look at this address on SA Map Viewer. And go to maps, and we'll go to topographic. So topographic, that relates to, obviously, to topography.
Yeah.
150 and 140, so they're at 5 metre intervals for this site. Hang on, oh no, here you're in 2 metre intervals. 2 metre intervals, that's great. So if we go into SA Map Viewer, find the property, and then we click on the topographic map down here, it shows us our contours for the site. And then if you want to go, well, actually, where is our site on this? You can go into, well, this thing's in the way again. Move that around. Go into data sets, land management, property and planning, scroll right down to the bottom and put in parcel cadastre. That will show you your boundaries on top of the topographic map. So with that, we can see that we've got 2 metre contours, so close to 188 there, 190, 192, and then close to 194 there. So 6 metres of fall over. Let's have a measure of that. 6 metres of fall over that distance, 50 metres. So we're looking at around that 1 in 10 slope. It's not, it's not particularly slopey. But as with anything on all of these projects, rely on the information that I give you for these projects. So you actually get given a site survey, and that shows you in detail what your contours are. Because this gives you an overview of what our slope is, but they're in 2 metre contours. So there can be a lot that changes between from one point where it's 2 metres high and another point where it's not. It might be flat, drop off, or it might be drop off quickly and then moderate slope. It can be all sorts of things. And these are only, or should only ever be regarded as a general idea of the topography as well. They shouldn't be looked at and relied upon. So Google Maps search for existing structures, vegetation, site entry. Site, yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
I don't know why my contours are looking like this, but it's shaded.
Okay, your SA Map Viewer would be shaded because you have something else switched on that applies a shading to it. So I'd click on the block, and then go to what's here. That will tell you what things you have turned on. So you've got, local government, land development plan. So you want to turn those off if you don't want the shading on there. So one of those overlays is providing shading.
Which one? This one?
I don't know which one is. I'd say the development plan zone categories is the most likely one to be providing.
This one?
Yeah, the shading.
So I should take it off.
Yeah, turn it off. I don't know if you can turn it off through there or whether you want to go into this. Yeah. Yeah, so go into your drop down list from your data sets and go in.
The big plan map index.
I think that would be the one that's applying the shading. It might be another one that's applying the shading. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that shading because we're just looking at this for an exercise. not gone. Yeah, we'll go into your list and go turning everything off. Yep. Yeah, there you go. Yep, go there and go remove. And you'll find which one. Yeah. So one of the things we have to look for is site entry, and that's going to be an important thing for this project because, well, we have to design for people to use cars, right? And typically people in a site there, motorised transport is going to be very important to them. If you're designing a place that's right in the city, then possibly motorised transport is not as fundamental, but certainly in a place like that it is. And you've got to think about with Shepherd's Hill Road that road gets really quite busy, and you've got to be entering and exiting the site. One thing that is, and I'll just spell it out fairly simply, is you are going to want to be able to drive a car in forwards, turn that car around and drive that car out again forwards from that site. So with that, we're removing the front fence. We get an appreciation of what's there currently, possibly what's there currently. Things were designed in order for that to happen, that you drive in forwards, you can turn the car around, you can drive out forwards. That sort of makes sense. But I want to see that actually happens on your plan as well. But we want to be looking at that site, having a look at the current access, and deciding whether that current access is the best choice. Because you can change that. And the best time to go changing that is when you're doing your development, your application for a new dwelling as well, for your development approval. What you actually have to do is with your application for works on the site, you put in an application for works on council property as well. But if you do that with your dwelling application, the process is simplified. What you have to do is, if you're changing the location of access, you'll have to modify the curb, etc., and then you'll have to pay for council to do their modifications of that curb and the reinstatement of curbing for the bit you're taking away. But that's one thing you want to be having a look at. So with your site entry, you've got to design that, or you've got to think about that with your placement of the house as well, and think about how cars can move around on your site with the placement of the house. But then you'll also be looking at stovey poles and trees on the footpath as well, because what you don't want to have is, you don't want to have your driveway coming out and finding then you've got a big tree on your right hand side as you're exiting the block, because then you're coming in, but then you're driving out and all your traffic's coming from the right hand side and you can't see them. And council are going to be concerned if you come up with an idea like that as well. So have a look at that site from Google Earth, dropping the man onto the street, and have a look at what's there, and have a look at and see if there's any obstructions to your view as you're exiting the site. So you have to balance all of these things. Then the next step is development plans, summarisation of general council information relevant to the site, including sustainability requirements, and then summarisation of site relevant aspects of zone information. So that's, with our development plans as they currently sit, we have our council-wide objectives, or our general provisions, whichever one your council wants to call them at that given point in time. And then we have our property-specific zone and policy area. Yep.
Sorry, I've done it wrong. I went to the next step instead of summarising the zones separately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
Yeah,
all
I
right. So
actually
that's
sort of like moved all the stuff around so the zone summaries fitted underneath the overall kind of council objective summary, so I will have to sort that out for you easily.
yeah. No, I think maybe you did do it right. So you provided a summary of council-wide objectives.
Yeah, I
And then
literally
you-
went through, pulled them down, summarised what they meant and in blocks of text, and then looked at where there was other information in different places that actually related to, say, parking.
Yeah.
And one of the things was that there was sort of like all the RH zoning
Yes.
did was reinforce specific aspects and add one point around not having bright colours. But it just literally reinforced it, specific things that were in the overall policy, which kind of says to me, okay, when I'm doing my design, if I don't want them to look at it too closely, those are the things I look for.
Yeah. No, I think you've done it really well.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's great. The way I think the way I advocate for going about this is go file, go new, blank document, get that there. And working with dual screens like this is so much better. I can't do that. With one screen, you guys have got dual screens there, that's great. Then the other thing you want to do is you want to get your development plan up. I'm not going to do it for Mitcham. Now, the property I was thinking about doing it on is number 10 Marion Street in Unley. So I'll just quickly get in the Unley development plan. Actually, do it link to my desktop? Yes, it did, right. Well, I'm going to make it simpler. Pretend we've gone and searched up our development plan and we've downloaded a PDF. Okay, I can only open it online only. No, okay, no, got to go on and download that. Actually, well, I'll open it online. Oh, that won't let me do that. All right.
Just try quick download later, because I think it
Might do it still straight away.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Download later. See how we go.
Because you're connected. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're connected to the internet. So I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yep. Great. Thank you. So we've got our blank Word document on one screen over there somewhere, and then we've got our development plan sitting here. What we'll then want to do, well, first of all, you want to have a look at the index, because we're going to be navigating our way through this whole document. Now, go back to the internet. So currently we're on 174 Shepherd's Hill Road, Beverly Heights. That's given bang away a bit too much. So grab that one there. What we want to do is go. Actually, I'll leave that password cadastre turned on. That's a handy one, but we want to get land development plan zone categories as well. So click on what's here. First of all, we'll get land development plan zone categories. Oh gee, it's taken a while. And we'll also get our password cadastre as well, because we want to go onto Salus to get the ownership information for that.
You can't get names though, can you? Unless you pay for them.
Exactly. Yeah. Great. Thanks. Yeah. Well, I'll approach that right now. Yeah. That is the thing. You can't. I'm not expecting you to spend $30 on a title.
I just cut and pasted the front end.
Yeah. Spot on. So what we do is we do our property search. Well, sorry, go into register search, because from SA Map Viewer we've already got our certificate of title reference. Is that telling me what it is? Is that... Nothing's really happening there. Oh, hang on, it's scrolled up. Yeah, that's a bit annoying. So we've got 5721440. 5741. 5721. And then 440.
How do you find the volume?
Yeah, so that's on cadastral information. So parcel cadastre.
Is that a data set?
So that's a data set. So under land management, right down the bottom, land management, we've got parcel cadastre.
Oh, okay.
So the word cadastre relates to any record of interest in a property. So switch on parcel cadastre. And you'll also see a thing here called valuation cadastre as well. Typically, for 90-something% of properties, they're going to be exactly the same. Parcel cadastre is exactly the same as valuation cadastre. The reason there's two different tick boxes for that is because sometimes you might hold multiple titles, but those titles are not used separately, and so you get those titles amalgamated under the one valuation for your rating and taxing.
I am not getting it in land development plan zone categories.
Yeah.
Volume and
No, not in. That one's not opening up for you.
No. Where did you get the volume and folio? Which category?
Oh, the volume and folio I got from parcel cadastre.
Okay.
So we go into that. See, things aren't really wanting to move around and
I'm not getting
show me very, very clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So data sets under land management, if you scroll all the way down the bottom, you find parcel cadastre.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, things have a bit of connections here on the screen for that. But we've got our certificate of title, and then we went into Salus, and then we did a register search on that particular title reference. So we go search, and it brings up this page. That's as far as we go. So just grab a snip of that and say, this is where I get all the ownership information from, because here it says ownership. So grab a snip of that, say, this is how I find the ownership, but I'm not expecting anybody to spend any money on any of these projects.
I pulled one up and it's $311.
$311. The cost of this product. What are you trying to search on?
This is a blank block there of my one of my dad's works before that down the track because I've obviously just pulled the block out.
Yeah.
I've pulled that. But
So that's a property interest report.
Is that
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
Oh.
you're going to be doing register search, but yeah, why is it
What did you
311?
click on
They've
here?
just outsourced it, that's why.
What did you click on here to get?
The register search.
I
Yeah. And then under that land search there, you can drop the land search down and you can go property search or register search. So I go register search.
What's the difference between the property search and register?
Oh, I can't remember because this is
Oh, okay.
yeah. Because this is all changed so much, and changed so much since I used to use it regularly.
Yeah, now
Not
it's
entirely across.
$30. So I don't know what I was trying to get into.
Well, so that is interesting. What's going to cost you $310? But maybe there's a lot of information involved in that, or it has multiple titles that
And
doing that property interest report.
Yeah.
So after this register search, what we have to do?
Just take a screenshot to say, I've put in the title information and I've got here to the register search, and it's going to cost me $30 to order a certificate of title.
Okay.
I thought
Because
we were allowed to see at least something like.
No, they don't let you see almost nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for free. now. Yeah,
I get you.
yeah,
I actually
yeah,
managed to get through to a page where you could actually sort of like order individual things.
yeah.
I don't know how I got there, I didn't say the string, but I actually didn't search through the cadastre. What I searched through was just directly through the name.
Okay, yeah,
And directly through the address.
Yeah,
And
so
it
you-
actually came up with something, and I managed to snip something that shows us $30 for the register search.
yeah,
$10 for title deeds, and another 16 for the title, but 15.50 for the title valuation.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yep, and
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I did actually find it. We will have a little search later.
yeah. Now I can't. Yeah, I know the page you're talking about. I can't remember what the steps are. I think maybe you do property search and then you can bring up that information on it. But with all of our projects, essentially because we're applying for council approval, we have to supply a certificate of title when we do our application. So you remember from last week, on your list of things you have to supply to the council, one of those is your certificate of title. Because we need to get that ownership information at this point in time, we might as well get the certificate of title, is my thinking.
Although my concern would be that we still haven't spoken to our client. I mean, we have our initial project initiation and client approval of that. We've done all of that work.
Yeah.
But we still haven't had confirmation from the client based upon, feeling good about us, that they are going to go ahead with it. Are we going to spend that money based upon that to repair? I mean, it's 1070. It's 1070. It's not extraordinary.
Wouldn't that owner have a certificate of title?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should just be able to get that copy from them or get that, but you don't have to register copy.
The council requires a copy of that certificate of title no longer than a year old. So that register search no longer than a year old.
So
But
get an initial one and then have the conversation and say we do actually need to get one no longer than a year old.
Yeah, and not every project follows the steps that are laid out in here. Typically, you will have that contact with the client and you'll say, hey, do you have any plans? Do you have any information you can send me? Do you have the certificate of title? So you glean what you can from them without having to do a bunch of work yourself or spending your money yourself. Yeah. But I think for the sake of these projects, we'll go in here and we'll pretend to order the information. We'll grab screenshots to say, this is where I order the information, this is where I get it. The only thing now is giving the money, not going to do that. So just take a snip.
So do we get given the actual certificate of title like for the project, or we don't necessarily need it?
I think project one you do get given a certificate of title. For the rest of the projects you don't, but that's okay. Yeah, I haven't made up a fun certificate of title for the two and three. Yeah. But yeah, through this we're going. This is all we have to do to order the certificate of title.
Yeah.
That's all I need to see. Okay. So now we've got that from our where are we? Location SA map viewer. For that property on Marion Street in Unley, we've got our zoning of residential historic conservation, policy area 6, spacious historic Unley and Malvern Trimmer estate. So I've got that written down on here, keep it simple for myself. So we've got our zoning there for our example property that we're going to be having a look at. And then we've got our zone here. So the first thing we're going to do is have a look at our table of contents and have a bit of a look here at what's going to be pertinent to our project and what's possibly pertinent to our project. Make that slightly larger so people can see that at the back. So we've got centres and shops. Well, we're doing a residential development in a residential area. Probably not going to be pertinent to us. Commercial industrial development? No. Community facilities? No. Crime prevention, possibly. Design and appearance, most definitely. Energy efficiency, most definitely. Form of development, yes. Hazards, possibly. Heritage, most definitely. Land division, landscaping, etc. So we'll work our way through there. So probably we're going to be starting at page 24. 1, 2, 4. And then it's about sitting down and having a read. Now I mentioned on Wednesday's class, the reason we introduced this in Wednesday's class is because you might want to have a bit of time to sit down quietly and have a good read over that. You'll be given space or time today in today's class to now go through this for the subject property and go through taking some snips. But it's also one of those things that is nice when you've actually got a bit of time and you don't feel so much time pressure. So read through it and take snips of sections which you think are possibly pertinent to the design. Don't just go grab the whole thing and put the whole thing in, because then I've got no evidence that you've engaged with the process at all, that you've found what's important and what's not. So for crime prevention, you might find design of buildings to overlook public space and appropriate use and design of landscaping and fencing, enabling them to leave an area or seek assistance when in danger through legible design, comprehensive. That's probably not pertinent to us, but certainly design of buildings to overlook public spaces. Clearly defining ownership and legitimate use of private, public and community space. So we need some delineation of our property boundaries, but we also want to have some visibility and overlooking public spaces. Minimising access between roofs, balconies and windows of adjacent buildings, possibly pertinent to us if we're building on boundary. Avoiding the use of materials which are likely to be susceptible to damage and vandalism, possible. Avoiding landscaping and fencing which may present a security risk by providing concealment opportunities. So we're not looking at big, blank fences that people can hide behind. We want some sort of visual permeability. So we work our way. So what we'll do then, I don't have the snipping tool on here, but drop it on your toolbar down there. Take a snip of the bits which are pertinent to you and then start building up in your Word document there your summary of general provisions. So you write general provisions here and then provide a bit of a summary of the important points or things you think might be important. And then within this document, you can also add highlighting. You can add, different text color, etc., to say I really think this is going to be very important to us. So we're working our way through those general provisions, looking at overshadowing, visual privacy, building setbacks from road boundaries. So that's definitely something that you're going to be looking at for Shepherd's Hill Road, is your setbacks. And where you start is with the council-wide objectives with your setbacks. Put that in, and then later on you'll be looking at your zone specific, so your residential hills, and you'll see, are there any other setback requirements in that trump what's in our initial council-wide objectives. So definitely you'll be taking screenshot of that. Except where so these are the building setbacks, except where specified in a particular zone, policy area or precinct. Buildings and structures should be set back from road boundaries having regard to the requirements and set out in table UN2, building setbacks. And we can go have a look at that. So unless we're on one of those particular roads and addresses, we're going to be, what we're at page 28, we're going to be greater than 6 metres. Oh, sorry, no, we're going to be, should be similar or compatible with setbacks of buildings on adjoining land or other buildings in the locality, and contribute positively to the function, appearance, and desired character of the locality. We're not.
Given we're dealing with historic area, they've probably got quite distinctly different setbacks to what's written down, so you'd want to have a look at those setbacks in the historic area immediately and say, well, actually, are we talking about sort of like, you know, pavement to street facing terrace style arrangements, in which case you don't want to set back like that.
Yes.
You actually got a building on a terrace.
Yep. Yep, spot on. So then we've worked our way through the council-wide objectives for this general information, and we're taking screenshots and we're getting a picture of exactly what's having to happen. Except, I'll just make that one not drop down anymore, and we'll go straight to. This one just keeps getting in the way, doesn't it? What's that? Can I close it without it? Okay. We'll be going to our residential historic conservation zone, because that's what our specific zoning is. So residential historic conservation, and then we work through that. So we have a bit of a read of the heritage value. So development should comprise alterations and/or additions to existing dwellings and ancillary domestic scale structures, replacement of a non-contributory building or site detracting from the desired character with respect and carefully designed buildings. And so within our zoning information there, it sets out exactly what sort of character of building we want, and it's setting out the roof pitch and the height of the walls at greater than 3 metres high, etc. If we let's have a look at our new development there. So a non-contributory building is a building which is outside the character, or isn't. So a non-contributory building and its site should be brought into conformity with desired character or otherwise consistent with the prevailing character of the locality at every opportunity through demolition and redevelopment of the whole structure, etc. So if we have a building on that site which doesn't fit in with the historic nature of that locality, and or is dangerous, or the original historic character of that building is so destroyed and so hidden that it contributes little to the historic character or detracts from the historic character, then it's considered as non-contributory. We can demolish it and then we can build in its place. But there are real constraints around the design of those houses that go in there. And if we read through this, we find that, you know, probably our small, you know, transportable style house with a fairly, like, with 15-degree pitch roof and 2,400 high floor to ceiling heights doesn't fit within this zone. So you'll find, and so you read through this and you take snips of things which are pertinent once again, and probably at this stage you'll get an idea, no, there's no way we can fit into that. But then, after having a look at the zone specific, you go into your policy area, and then once again read through that. So dwelling sites 15 metres and street frontage with side areas of 750 square metres. So building wall heights in the order of 3.6 metres. So definitely not. Total roof heights in the order of 5.6 metres or 6.5 metres, and roof pitches in the order of 27 degrees and 35 degrees. So get that, and then look at our property will no. So you'd have no chance of getting that getting that through. But that's how we go.
You'd actually
that.
have to modify it. I mean, it's not that you'd have no chance of getting that.
No, yeah,
But
you'd
in
have to
terms of
modify
a
it.
floor plan, a roof plan, they wouldn't get it in timber, but, you know, you'd probably have to do it in masonry and, you know, whatever. But what they're concerned about really is that the front looks like it. They don't actually care about the back. What they care about is that when someone walks down the street, this doesn't significantly stick in their eye
Yeah,
in terms of modernity of that period. So that building could fairly easily be got through, but you would actually have to modify the materials and the roof pitch and sort of like some of the facial details.
yeah. And what you're also going to have to do in that process, if you're trying to put this on that block in Unley, you'll probably have to employ a heritage architect, and then they'll make a case for you, and it will probably have to go to assessment panel. So that assessment panel will just about everything in a historic zone is going to go through an assessment panel. With our project, we're not going to have to go through that. So ours is far simpler, but the process is the same. You start with the council-wide objectives, find out what you need to find out in that regard. So it'll cover things like setbacks. It'll cover things like access from arterial roads, secondary and main roads. It'll cover a lot of the use of natural colours, heights of fences, etc. in the general council-wide provisions. After establishing those bits which are pertinent to the place, then we go into our zone specific, pull that apart, and if we're in a policy area, we pull that one apart as well and see what. And as we get further down the list into our policy areas, though anything expressed in the policy area trumps what's in our zone if there's conflicts between the two, and what's in our policy area and zone trumps what's in the council-wide objectives if there's a conflict between the two.
Policy areas are pretty rare for just normal, it's not overly common for heaps of things to have fall into a policy area. That's more like the unique subdivisions of land, things like that.
Yeah. So policy areas typically happen a lot more in the older established inner metropolitan areas.
Or in something like this where we're in a development.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is a special policy area to try and build a different and new look and feel, or historically an old look and feel.
But it's not saying if you're looking into a property and you can't find it fall into a
Policy area.
zone,
Yeah.
you should go, is there something missing here? It's more common to not than it is to.
Yeah, I'd say probably about 15% of your properties in the metro area would have a policy area attached to them. So it's not the most common, but you got to teach it, got to cover it because if I was just sticking to council-wide and zoning, then people would go, well, I've got this policy area and it's saying I have to have 3.6 metre high walls and all that. Yeah. So.
Or just forget.
Yeah. So that's how. Does anybody have any issues with that process? So one, what you do have to keep in mind is this is the first project you're doing. This is the first time you're pulling apart a development plan. I'm not expecting perfection. I'm not expecting that you'll find absolutely everything in this process. I'm fine with that. What I want to see is you've gone through that process of looking at the council-wide objectives, you're having a look for what you think is pertinent, and you've had a look at all the other bits, and you're pulling bits together. We'll find more stuff as we work through the project. So you're meeting with the council. You're going to go in there thinking, or you might go in there thinking, oh yes, I know everything, I've covered everything, and the council are going to say, oh yeah, but there's this bit here that relates to your property. There might be surprises. That's fine. So, yeah, I'll close that. There's that one, made no changes to that. But that's how I'd go about doing that. get that separate Word document there, start putting it all together, and then bring it into your report. Gets messy otherwise. One thing we haven't done, so we summarise general council information relevant to site and zone information, copy of maps relevant to site, for example, fire zones. So that's in there for project 1. So your fire zones, last I saw, were on the Mitcham Council Development Plan. So there's that information in there, but it's far easier to navigate that through SA Map Viewer than the maps. But there are maps within the development plan where the information isn't reflected on SA Map Viewer.
Is that just to show what, like, where it sits and how close how close it's to another fire zone?
Yeah. So I'll go down into so we've got, and and look, it's messy to navigate. Where are we? Index to zones. Let's have a look at that. So this is our Unley development plan. We've got the Unley Council area broken up into your various different maps, and so we're going to have a look at this and go. I don't know. We're pretty sure we're on map. So Unley number 5, UN 5. Let's have a look at that. So Unley Road. How far across do we? George Street there, Leicester, and oh yeah. So we're only just fitting onto this one here. We're about where F is on that map. So we can see from this map that we're residential historic conservation. Okay, so our maps so that's indexed zone. Only number 1 overlay showing only affordable housing. And we'll go through we'll have a quick look at our overlays. So City of Unley structure plan, so George Street, we're just in that little bit in there. So we're historic character residential. Anything else that's applying to us? No, there's nothing else applying to us in that overlay. Unley City Airport building heights. Move down a little bit. See map. It's a bit hard to. The North Terrace King William. We're in that one there. See map overlay UN1 overlay 2A. UN1 overlay 2A. Oh. Yeah. I have to zoom out from that. Move that across. So D, all structures exceeding 45 metres above existing ground level. So I don't think we're going to.
See, I would have been deeply unconcerned about that because I'm so constrained in terms of what I can build in the built-up area that there's absolutely no reason for me to even bother looking from my point of view, because the bottom line is I'm already being told that I have to build the same height as the house there and the house
Yes,
there.
yeah, definitely, yeah. And so, yeah, and I'm just going through this more.
Yeah.
As the process, rather than it being at all pertinent. Yeah.
It's going to be the next project where it might actually matter.
Exactly. Yeah. So have a look at airport building heights again and you're going to have to for project 2, and have a look at it for project 3 as well. We're building a commercial property in the city. So building heights for airports, or building heights in terms of plot ratios defined by the council might be important to us as well. But if we're building anything in North Adelaide, for example, it's important to us because the planes are really close. So but we're fine. And so these are the various different maps. And now, so what you do is you pour through that and see if there's anything relevant to your site, basically. So we won't be doing it for Unley, we'll be doing it for Mitcham, and you'll be having a look at that locality and seeing if there's anything pertinent to your site, basically. Then, so a copy of maps relevant to site. Although it says here, e.g. fire zones, what I'm expecting is that for the fire zones, you're going to get that from SA Map Viewer. It's much clearer picture. You can go, okay, this is medium, this is high, I can take a screenshot of that, I can show the distance. It's going to be the easy way to go about it, and I'm fine with that. Then, after having done all that, reread client brief and ensure that all aspects meet the requirements of the development plan. Consider any aspects that may not. Record these aspects and options that may be offered to the client at the client consultation on client brief summary. So you've done all that, but then have another look at your brief. Now that you've had a detailed look at the zone and say, yeah, there are some aspects here which might be tricky for us. There are some things that we have to be concerned about. There are some things I have to bring up with the council. And finally, the last thing you have to do is identify class of building from the National Construction Code. I assume, what's that?
How easy is that?
Yeah, I assume everybody finds that to be a very simple procedure now. Yeah, and is there anybody who doesn't know? And don't be ashamed. Say, no, I don't know.
I can't find the garage or carport entry. So for the 174, it may be like there are lots of tree around there, so I cannot find the entry of garage.
Yeah. So with our project, the way we're looking at it is, yes, we've got that site, the house has been removed. Let's say we've maintained a lot of vegetation. Now you get a lot of that information from your site, from your site survey when you import that into your drawing, and the trees on there are the trees that exist. In terms of access to carports and garages, there's no carport or garage mentioned on the client brief. So what they're doing, they're building this little house, but they're not building a carport or a garage.
They're not going to have a choice.
But, yeah, you might have that discussion with the client at the client consult and say, with this project, are we looking to have a carport here? If so, where should we put it? What sort of a car accommodation do you want? What does the council require in terms of car accommodation and access for that? So that's something you're going to have to work out.
You just think like as a new development, not like this.
Exactly. So as a new development. So it's a new house that's going on there. We might build a carport or a garage associated with that.
It's interesting you say might, because once you go through the council stuff, you've got to work out what we might do and what we actually have to let the client know that possibly you're not going to get a building at all unless you improve those things.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's the key. It's actually sort of like the whole pile of things that on that very, very basic plan that just aren't there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that is a very good point. And those discussions that you have with your client, essentially what you want to be doing is steering your client towards something which is going to be compliant and category 1. Now, I've mentioned category 1, category 2 and non-complying a little bit, but we haven't really pulled that apart and what that is. Put really simply, if a development fits really well within the development plan, like basically follows it like a recipe, then it will be considered category 1. And that's if, there's a few things about retaining walls, all that sort of stuff. And category 1, complying development, is a fairly simple, quick process for gaining approval, and your fees are going to reflect what they are in that table that you dug out last week. If there are bits that don't exactly fit within the development plan, but they can be assessed on merit, or they have merit, you can say, well, look, it doesn't exactly fit in with what you say, but in all reason, this is the best approach. And if it has merit, well then it will get assessed on merit, which is also known as category 2. Category 2 requires a little bit more looking into by the council and may require neighbourhood notification. So predominantly there is neighbourhood notification when there's a category 2. If you're doing something which is really quite normal, and look, you never really know who your neighbours around the area are going to be and whether they're just going to flatly object to everything, etc. You never know these things, but typically that's not going to be an issue with neighbourhood notification. So that's category 2. But what you really want to get is that indication from council that, okay, now we can consider this as category 1, compliant development. Second best option is if they say, yeah, we can consider this on merit. And then the least desirable option is if your client's saying, no, I want to build this thing which is completely not fitting in with the development plan, and I want to fly in the face of council, then council are going, that is a non-complying development, and we're going to assess that as a non-complying development, which would require neighbourhood notification, development assessment panel, etc. So that's the overview of what those categories are: category 1, category 2, and then non-compliant. Sorry, I can't remember how we segued into that. But you're going to want to sit down with your client and say, if we're going to make things easy with the council, this is how we make things easy with the council. If you want to push for what you want, we can do that, but it's not going to be as simple. So once you've read your development plan, then you get a sense of that. And also what you'll find in your development plan are there are areas which are not necessarily conflicting, but competing arguments. So you might have dwellings that use natural colours, but then there'll also be a statement saying in harmony with existing development to reflect the character of the area. And if the character of the area is predominantly waterfall austerity houses that are pink and blue and green and etc. shades, which are not particularly natural colours.
Waterfall austerity.
Oh, yeah, they're the houses built in the 1950s that had the curved fronts to them.
Oh,
so it's
that,
not.
Yeah.
It's like the Australian budget version of Art Deco.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you might. Yeah. Well, there might be. Oh, thank you.
Oh, we've got plenty of time.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. There might be aspects. There might be statements within the development plan which kind of contradict each other. And that's fantastic when you find those, because then you can use whichever one you want to argue for your client's desires. So that's what your role will be, is understanding that development plan to the extent that you are able to convince council to have it either category 1 or on merit assessment. Get the easiest path for you and your client, but get what your client wants. Making sense? Cool. All right. So I'll stop that recording.